Good morning. Good morning. Hope everyone is doing well on this Wednesday morning here. Thank you so much for joining us. My name is Alex Graves. I'm the Vice President for Government Relations at the Association of Independent California Colleges and Universities, better known as AICCU. Really pleased today to be hosting this virtual counselor conference. This wraps up the second year of our fall counselor conferences that we brought back last year. And these are really intended to bring together experts from our institutions across admissions, financial aid, and student services to share more about our institutions and really important information that can help provide you with good information in advising students, whether you're attending today as a high school counselor, a community college transfer counselor, kind of working independently with students and families. Just want to say at the outset, we really appreciate all the work that you do in your roles throughout the state to advise students on their journeys to and through higher education in the state of California. See if I can get my slides to work here. Perfect. So we have three great panels lined up for this morning. Before we dive into those, I just want to take a few minutes just to talk about AICCU as a collective set of institutions, independent, nonprofit colleges and universities in our membership. Talk a little bit about our colleges, who our students are, and how can you and your students learn more about the diverse array of options that are available at our institutions. So AICCU, we are a nonprofit membership organization founded in 1955. At the time, to coordinate with the state on the formation of the California Scholarship Program, which is now known as the Cal Grant Program, and as many, if not all of you probably know, is the, at least in my view, the signature state financial aid program nationally. So we are the collective voice for private nonprofit colleges and universities in the state. All our member institutions must be nonprofit, degree granting, and accredited, with their main campus located here in the state of California. As of this September, we are 87 members strong. Our membership is incredibly diverse. We have your kind of traditional undergraduate programs. We have liberal arts colleges, those that are graduate only, focusing on high need fields. We have faith-based institutions, institutions as far north as Reading with Simpson University, and institutions as far south as the San Diego region with several there. We also have institutions that are predominantly an online or hybrid modality versus many as well who are kind of your traditional residential experience. Collectively among our membership, there's over 6,000 programs available to students. And again, that's a tremendous array of options. I also forgot to mention we have several institutions that specialize in the arts. So institutions like California Institute of the Arts, California College of the Arts, Otis College of Art and Design. Again, just really highlights the tremendous diversity of our membership and options for students. Again, this is just a visual kind of cue to what I just highlighted. Just our institutions are really scattered throughout the state, I would say in almost any region of the state, whether you're talking the Bay Area, the LA Basin, San Diego area. The majority of four-year colleges and universities in those regions are likely to be those in the private nonprofit sector. So we think there's tremendous opportunity and access provided by these institutions in almost any region of the state, wherever you're joining us from today. A little bit more about the institutions. Small classes, as you see here, average student to faculty ratio 10:1. Approximately 3/4 of our institutions are either Hispanic serving institutions, meaning at least 25% of the undergraduate student body identifies as Hispanic or Latino, or are emerging HSIs, meaning they're not quite at that 25% threshold, But again, they are recognized with that designation. Also have institutions that are designated as yellow ribbon serving institutions in support of our military and veterans. Other things you see commonly across our institutions: access to health centers, mental health services, summer programs, whether those are for study abroad opportunities or internships coordinated through the institution's kind of career services centers. Many of our institutions, again, that are residential experiences, provide housing. Some can even guarantee on-campus housing for students for their full 4 years in attendance. Other availability of student services, career services, academic advising, what have you. Again, I think that's really a hallmark of our institutions. Who are our students? You see some information on that here. Again, collectively, our institutions enroll just under 184,000 undergraduate students, approximately 63%, so a little bit under 2/3 of those students are California residents. We are also proud to enroll just under 3,400 new California Community College transfer students annually. We also enroll approximately 166,000 graduate students as well. And I mentioned that just because we know that in addition to pursuing a bachelor's degree, many students at some point then choose to go on to pursue an advanced degree in a variety of fields. And we have a variety of options and pathways for students in our institutions in that space as well. So a little bit more, here's a snapshot on the diversity of our students that we serve. So you see here on the top, our undergraduate enrollment, and then you also see a breakdown below that of our Cal Grant enrollment. We educate roughly 25,000 Cal Grant students among our undergraduate population, the majority of which identify as Latino, and approximately half of which are first-generation college students. And so, again, that program is a model financial aid program, we think, nationally, and really helps to provide that financial support from the state to students and families to help them recognize that they'll be supported financially if they want to pursue a degree at one of our institutions. And that financial support is added on to other support that I'll talk about in a second, both from other sources, including institutional aid. So again, here, as I mentioned, we serve just over 25,000 Cal Grant students. As you see on the right side there, if you are a Cal Grant student attending one of our institutions are making significant financial investments in you as a student to support your pathway to and through our institution. So on average, in addition to a Cal Grant, you're receiving just over $24,000 per year in institutional grant aid. Again, that's grant aid, so it's money that does not need to be paid back. It's not a loan. The institutions, as I said, are really dedicated to ensuring that cost is not a deterrent for those students. Oh, let me go back for a second. Sorry, I went the wrong way. You also see here just a little bit more about what does median debt look like at graduation for students who borrow. And then you also see here just under 80% of students in undergraduate programs at our institutions receive some combination of institutional, state, local, or federal grant aid, meaning the Pell Grant. I saw that someone raised their hand. I'll come to you in just a second. I think I have like 1 or 2 slides left, and then I'm happy to take your question with the time remaining before we move to the panel. Briefly here, just an example of sticker price versus actual cost of attendance. Again, we recognize, that sticker price and sticker shock are a real thing. And so our institutions, again, are very actively working to engage with students, families, counselors, others in the community to talk about the types of financial aid that may be available or institutional aid. And so you see here kind of sticker price versus the average annual cost. You see that broken out here. I believe this is from iPeds, looking at what that average annual cost looks like based on family income. And then again, some additional information on both median debt and then the four-year graduation rates overall, as well as the four-year graduation rate for Pell Grant students. And I note the four-year graduation rate information because in addition to just the cost of attendance, right, we know that an additional driver of cost to getting a college degree is how quickly can you get your courses, how quickly can you graduate. And we're really proud that many of our institutions have very, very strong four-year graduation rates. And here's just another example, similar point, this one being for the University of Pacific located in Stockton, California. Really proud of our contributions to several key workforce areas of the state that you see here. And just note this in case you have students who are really interested in any of these pathways, really encourage you to explore the options available in our sector. We have institutions, for example, in the nursing space, like Samuel Merritt University in the Bay Area. That is their bread and butter. That is what they do. They produce nurses. That is what they are focused on. We have institutions that are focused on clinical psychology and counseling. So again, there are options available depending on your students' interests. How can you learn more? We certainly encourage students to contact schools if there are specific schools they're interested in. We recently, in conjunction with the launch of this fall's counselor conferences, launched a new college guide dashboard. So our college guide had for a long time been a PDF and printed document that we would send out. We have digitized that to make it interactive and searchable. You can find that at caprivatecollegespossible.org. There you can find information. You can find snapshots on enrollment of an institution. You can find campus facts here, again, student to faculty ratio, whether they're test optional, what else is required as part of admissions. You can find links to things like admissions, student life, tuition and fees. On the right here, you can actually search by major. So if you know you have a student who's interested in engineering, you can type that in. It'll pop up with a list of our institutions that offer various engineering degrees, and you can use that to help advise your students. You can also search by region. And again, in addition to visiting our website at caprivatecollegespossible, you can also use this QR code to pull up that resource as well. And our hope in digitizing that is that we recognize with our institutions all being independently governed that it can potentially seem daunting to try and advise students on their options in our sector with the limited time that you may have with them. And so we hope that by providing this resource in a digital format that's searchable, that it's something you can bookmark and use to help familiarize yourself with more options at our institutions and to help advise students. But we certainly also encourage you to share those with the students and families you are working with. So with that, I think we have a minute or two. I see. Yes, I will put the link in the chat here in just a second. I can do that actually as we're transitioning here. With that, I believe we're going to move into our first panel here. And as we do that, I will drop the link into the chat right now. So again, that will take you to our caprivatecollegespossible.org website. Specifically, I've hyperlinked to the Resource Center where you can find that digital dashboard. And again, really encourage you all to bookmark that and use it at your leisure. Again, our hope in designing it is that it helps make advising as it relates to our institutions and the pathways a bit easier. And we certainly welcome your feedback as well on that, since we have designed it with you all in mind, and we hope it's helpful. I will also drop my email into the chat here, and I see we are running right on schedule, which is great. So with that, we are going to transition into our first panel, which is going to be talking a bit with some of our folks who work on the admissions side at several of our institutions. And so I think what I will do, rather than introducing them, sorry, I thought I saw one thing. Oh, I saw there was a raised hand. from Maureen. Maureen, did you have a question or did I miss it in the Q&A? Oh, Amber, someone said they think the chat might be disabled, so maybe we can check on that as we're transitioning into the panel here. Okay, I see that note. We'll work on that as we move along here. Thanks for flagging that. Okay, so if Belinda, Tyra, and Mike want to come on to video here. Perfect. Good morning. Welcome. I think what I'll do here is I'm going to invite the three of you to each introduce yourself and just maybe a 30-second kind of snippet on your institution for those who may be unfamiliar with it, and we'll kind of move into some questions. So I will go as I see folks on my screen. I'll start with Tyra, then move to Mike and Belinda.
Great, thanks, Alex. Hi, everyone. My name is Tara Briggs, and I am the Vice President for Admission and Financial Aid at Harvey Mudd College. Harvey Mudd College is one of the Claremont colleges in Claremont, California, about 40 miles east of Los Angeles. And we are 5 undergraduate colleges that are all located in 1 square mile, where once a student is enrolled at any one of the Claremont colleges, they can take classes, join clubs, do athletics, all sorts of things across the different Claremont colleges. Harvey Mudd itself is sort of the math, science, engineering branch of the Claremont colleges, and that we only offer majors in the STEM fields. But we call ourselves the Liberal Arts College of Math, Science, and Engineering, since we expect our students to study broadly across all areas, but with a STEM focus and a focus on collaboration and a rigorous curriculum. I don't know, maybe I'll kick it over to Mike because he's next to me on my screen.
Terrific. Thanks, Sarah. Yeah, my name is Mike McInnes. I'm the Senior Director of Admissions here at Westmont College. We are in Santa Barbara. We are, I guess what I would say is the #1 Christian liberal arts college in the Western US. About 1,300 students, so it's a small, intimate community where students are looking for, not only that liberal arts education, similar to what Thyra just mentioned, a very broad and kind of seminar discussion-based type education, but from a Christian perspective. So students are looking to invest in their Christian faith with the same kind of intentionality they are in their studies. It's a beautiful spot. You should come see us.
Thanks, Mike. And I'll move to Belinda.
Hi, everyone. Good morning. My name is Belinda Sandoval-Sasweta. I'm the Associate VP of Admissions here at the University of Redlands. Just real quick on University of Redlands, we are about 60 miles east of LA. We have 2,000 undergraduate students. We are considered a liberal arts college or a university. We have over 40 majors, really unique things like geographic information systems, health, medicine, and society, human animal systems, communication sciences and disorders. And we are a residential campus. So we do require students to live on campus all 4 years. Local students within 30 miles can be exempted from that. Thank you all for being here, and we look forward to talking with you more about options at AICCU campuses.
Great. Thank you for that. And as I move into some questions for you all, I'll just again note for those joining us, if you have questions, feel free to put them into the Q&A, and we'll do our best to either answer those through the Q&A chat function or in real time as we go. So let's start with just kind of a high-level question. Could you talk a little bit about the cadence of terms of the types of application deadlines you have for your institution, both regular decision, but if you have kind of early decision, early action, things like that, as well as maybe for folks maybe less familiar, kind of what are some of the, I guess, potential benefits for students to considering, early decision, early action. And I'll let whoever wants to unmute themselves first start with that question.
I can start, I suppose. Here at Westmont, we offer an early action deadline, which is our initial one. That first one is coming up October 15, and then we do a second early action round November 1st. essentially, early action, if you're not familiar, simply means that, well, first of all, it's non-binding. So a student who applies early action isn't required to commit to that college. And the benefit for the student primarily is about timing. We guarantee that a student who applies by October 15th will have a decision by December 1st. And then if they're applying by November 1st, they'll have a decision by New Year's. So really, it's just in the interest of the student to have that decision back quickly, and then they know going into the spring season, they have that decision, and then they can just focus on making up their minds from there. We do a priority deadline in mid-January as well. We have a capped enrollment, and so if we're at or approaching that cap, we may have to start a wait list after that. If not, otherwise we kind of switch into a rolling pattern from there. So that's what's happening here.
And I'll just share, we're very similar at the University of Redlands. We have our early action filing period, which is due November 15th. We have a regular action due January 15th, none of which are binding. Very similar to Westmont, we talk a lot about the benefits of applying early, and they really are in the timing. We promise to also have everything we can, if you apply early, done by the holidays. And so we work really hard to just get all of that done and taken care of. So I don't know, Tira's process may be a little bit more complicated, so I'll turn it over to you.
Thanks, Melinda. Yes, we do have a different setup. We have early decision, which, as Mike and Belinda have referred to, early decision is binding. So it means that if you are accepted under one of our early decision rounds, we do expect that you'll withdraw your applications to other colleges. Before you ask, the exception to this is financial aid. For example, if a family decides that financial aid is not sufficient, that is being offered during early decision, they are allowed to withdraw without any sort of penalty. It's not like we're going to come find you and make you come to Harvey Mudd. But we have 2 rounds of early decision. One, you apply by November 15th and find out by December 15th. And the other, you apply by January 5th, which also happens to be our regular decision deadline, but early decision 2 students will find out by February 15th. Regular decision, as I mentioned, January 5th, students find out usually in the middle of March. One advantage is definitely timing for us as well, in that students find out early, and especially for ED1 students, if you're admitted by December 15th, you won't necessarily need to submit any additional applications. But I'm going to be very frank here. Honestly, I think early action serves students better often than early decision, because it doesn't tie you down. And we know that for most families, you're going to want to see different financial aid packages and make your decision based on that. And you don't have that opportunity. But the other advantage for some colleges in early decision is that the admit rate can be somewhat higher in early decision than it might be in regular decision. And I think very fair questions for counselors and families to ask colleges is about the different admit rate between those 2 groups. And also to ask, and I don't think people are thinking to ask this as much, I think it's fair to ask for what % of your early decision admitted students will withdraw due to financial aid concerns. I mean, for Harvey Mudd, we admit about 100 students a year early decision, and it's usually 1 or 2 who will withdraw. So we feel comfortable that you're receiving the same financial aid package in early decision that you would in regular.
Thanks so much. And I got we received a question here. I think it's a good time to just ask it, since we were talking about financial aid a little bit. So the question comes from Meng, who says, as a community college counselor in one of the most impoverished counties in California, on the surface, the CSU system would see like the best bang for the buck for our transfer students. Why should low-income students consider these private schools when the costs seem to be double or even triple that of what a typical CSU costs? So I don't know who wants to take that one first.
As probably the most expensive college here, I'm happy to jump in. I mean, yes, the cost is going to be the overall cost, the total cost that you're going to see will be dramatically different. What a family might pay might be very, very little difference. And in some cases, you may pay less to go to a private institution than you may to go to a public, especially, I would argue, for our neediest families. If you need everything, that means you need everything for the cost of a Cal State, and you need everything for the cost of a Harvey Mudd or a Westmont or University of Redlands. Harvey Mudd is able to meet 100% of demonstrated need for students. And so, yes, we do have some families that are getting $90,000 in grant money. And so it may cost them the same or less to come to Harvey Mudd than it might to a Cal State or a UC.
Yeah, I'll just chime in quickly, because we're not in the same position that Mudd is in, where we can meet 100% of need. And yet, I guess for students in the kind of scenario that was just raised, a lot of it will depend on the individual student, because that student may be, I mean, if that student's an athlete, then there's potentially other funds that come in there. If that student's a musician, at least here at Westmont, there may be other funds for that. There can be a whole host of ways that that additional funding comes in. I'm thinking of a student, just a few years back, who was looking at publics primarily thinking that was going to be the most affordable option. And yet when it came down to it, the out-of-pocket expense for that student to attend Westmont was cheaper than, his closest CSU, because that did not get discounted or financially did not come in the same way he expected there. And out-of-pocket, his family paid less to come here. So I would say to those students and to the counselors that are advising those students is, apply and follow the process, and then you'll see. And then you don't have to make that decision to go no one's going to force you to go someplace that's going to cost more. So it is a bit of a challenge to look past that sticker price, and then just follow the process and explore it and see how far it goes there.
And I would only add this, which is that, oftentimes students don't know what they're going to receive until they've actually gone through the process. And so I really do encourage students to apply to those schools, to get a financial aid package, and then make a decision. I was a product of someone who is, I was counseled by someone who said I could not afford going to a specific university. It was private, AICCU affiliated as well. And I was able to go there just because of merit awards, financial aid, and things of that nature. So I would say if a student has a particular college of mind and it's in their heart to go there, go through the process, to really advise them to go through that process and see what we can offer.
Right. Yeah. I think so. I think what you're hearing is worth considering putting in an application if a student's interested in an institution's program or whatnot, and then just if you apply and you're accepted, you're going to receive a financial aid award offer, and that'll give you something to compare. And I know we have institutions who do public price promises where they make the price comparable through financial aid to going to like a UC or a CSU, for example. I know some institutions also have transfer promises with their surrounding community colleges. So again, I hope that was helpful. I want to turn for a second. I saw there's one other question in the chat that I'll come back to in a second. But just quickly, a few of the other questions. Standardized test scores. What required, optional? None of the above?
I'll start maybe this time around. At the University of Redlands, it is optional. And we actually did a study looking at data from 10 years back. This was right before the pandemic. So we lost some of the excitement of that announcement of being test optional. But nonetheless, we did some research and really determined based on our data that test scores were not necessarily that they were not necessarily predictive of how our students were going to be doing as undergraduate students. So that GPA was. And so as a result, we are a test optional university. We are seeing every year an increase in students who opt to not submit test scores, as upwards, I think this class had 80% of the students who enrolled did not present a test. So it's totally up to the student. We do give them about 72 hours to change their mind if they want to once they submit. And so it's possible to change your mind once you've done it. But what we say is once the application has gone to read, we really can't do a shift. But we can up until that point. And so we really encourage students to just think about what is best for them. And if that score is reflective of who they are and what they've done in high school, then proceed and send it to us. And if it's not, then we don't need it.
Thank you.
Yeah, we're also test optional here at Westmont. And we will accept the SAT, ACT, or CLT. That one we just started accepting this year. And yeah, one place this comes into play is with merit scholarships. And so what we've done, you know, if a student's asking like, well, should I send it? Should I not send it? We actually publish the criteria we use to award scholarships on our website. So students could go on there and say, well, what would I get? Here's my GPA, here's my test score. What would I get if I sent both in? What would I get if I only sent my transcript? And they can make up their minds for themselves whether to send it. And then we instruct our team to also, if the student does send it, to give them the better of the two options. If, you know, if they sent a test score and it turns out they would have done better from a scholarship perspective without it, we go ahead and switch that off for them. I will say, I mean, yeah, this is a big debate. I think it's a healthy debate. And with test scores, like anything else, any other metric that students send in about themselves, it can be handled responsibly and it can be handled irresponsibly. And so it's incumbent on us to deal with those well in a way that recognizes this is one lens on a student. It does say something about the student, but no student should be reduced to that. And so anyway, it's optional here at Westmont.
Again, ours is a little more complicated. Being a technically based institution, we find the opposite that most institutions are seeing these days, and that about 70% of our students continue to send us test scores, and 30% do not. And it's a somewhat similar ratio all the way through the admits and our enrolls as well. We are test optional for this year, and we are sort of undergoing discussions about what will happen in the future. One thing I hope counselors understand, it is not up to the admission office whether we are test optional or not. For example, at Harvey Mudd, it is our department chairs committee that serves as the advisory committee to our admission office. And it really is up to their recommendation what we will continue to do. What we have seen since we went test optional when everyone else did, and see if you can follow these two phrases. One is that most of the students who applied without or enrolled without test scores are not struggling at Harvey Mudd. So that's the first half of the sentence. The second half is that most of the students who are struggling by our definition at Harvey Mudd did not submit test scores. Now, whether that is because they did not submit test scores or due to pandemic learning loss or anything else, the many, many other things, we don't know. But essentially what we are hoping, as much as I would love us to remain test optional, and I think there is some support there, we need to have resources in place to support the students and our faculty in making sure we can meet students where they are. So that is our path forward. I'll be very honest with you. If in a month or so you hear we're going back to testing, then I've lost my argument. But in general, it is a sort of a broader discussion than counselors might think. And the bottom line is meeting students where they are.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Okay, I'm going to come back to a question that was in the Q&A here, and this might then help us start pivoting a little bit to talk about transfer as well. There was a question about if early decision was available for transfer students or only for first-time freshmen.
For us, it's only for first-year students.
And typically, transfer students have a slightly different deadline, at least at the University of Redlands and the previous 3 other institutions that I worked at. So for the University of Redlands, as an example, our transfer deadline for fall of 25 is not until March, so it's March 1. So I think it does vary. Every institution might have a different process and or a different deadline, but early decision and even early action to a degree is considered for first year students.
Mhm.
Yeah, similar. We don't have an early decision process, but the deadlines for transfers are a little bit different. And just because, yeah, usually transfers are thinking on a little bit on a different timeline than first year students are. So
I'm going to stick with this thread for a second, Mike, and since you're already unmuted, I'll start with you on this one. Could we spend a moment talking about what those timelines look like for students that are interested in transferring from community college?
yeah, I think what we've seen is a pretty wide array of, you got everything from your type A students who have a plan and are following that plan, and nothing is going to sway them from that plan. And so they're on top of their stuff pretty early. And then you've got students, who are probably thinking, really just like semester to semester. And so they may not really be thinking about where they're going to transfer or when they're going to transfer until the semester just prior to, that target enrollment. For us, that hasn't been an issue. I know that might be an issue at some other places where they kind of have to get on things a little bit earlier. At least for us, that hasn't really been an issue. We're a smaller school, so we don't have all of the agreements that some of the larger schools have with the community colleges, but we also don't have a lot of the hurdles either. So, transfer students looking at Westmont, there's no credit threshold they have to meet. I mean, they could come in with 1 semester done. They could come in with, 2 years done, 60 units, something like that. It doesn't matter to us. We'll evaluate where they are, give them as much credit as we possibly can for the work that they've done, and then just have them pick up wherever they left off once they come in. But for us, at least the last several years, we've had transfers like bubble to the surface, gosh, the week before classes start. And if we've got a space, then fantastic, let's make it happen. Now I wouldn't count on that if I were that student. But that's kind of been the scenario. So we set our deadlines and things accordingly, so knowing that transfers operate on a little bit kind of I don't want to call it a nearsighted timeline, but just a shorter timeline in general. Once they know where they want to go, they tend to act pretty quickly, and so we've adjusted to match that. But all that to say, and maybe this is true more broadly of other schools as well, we have stated deadlines, and then sometimes there's still openings after those deadlines, and so it doesn't hurt to inquire from there. So,
Linda?
I would, echo a lot of what Mike has mentioned already. So just for interest of time, I will just share that, we require for fall students to apply by March 1st. They have until June 1st to decide if they're going to come or not. We also don't have necessarily a minimum requirement, although if you're at 24 units or above, you don't have to show high school transcripts or high school academic record. If you're under 24, then we look at high school. We do have a cap in terms of what will transfer, but typically it's a full 2 years worth of work. So we do want students to consider us as a transfer option, and we'll work with students on a case by case basis to do advising prior to transferring, and then we'll work with you on once you get there, or that your student get there. We also have degree completer programs. So we have Our traditional transfer, which is, going to school full time, possibly the option of living in the residence halls, depending on, if they're over 23, that's usually something we consider not having to do. And then but if you're working with a working adult, then there are some degree completer programs that follow about the same deadlines, have slightly different process.
Again, we're somewhat different here, in that we are a very small school, meaning that our entering class every year is about 228 students. And we have a very specific core curriculum that students complete mostly in their first year. We have a very high retention rate, so we don't actually have a lot of transfer spaces. And I'm, to put a finer point on that, I'm talking, we normally will admit anywhere from 3 to 5 transfer students, and that only happens in the fall. We don't have a mid-year entry because of that core curriculum. So it is less transfer friendly, I think, than you will find at many places. And we are looking to see how much of our core curriculum has a prospective transfer student completed so that they can jump in. But we certainly will have transfer students every year.
Great. I want to ask about if maybe you could highlight or talk a little bit about the types of either partnerships or articulation agreements as it relates to transfer that your institution might have. And as you do that, I do want to also make a plug that this month, roughly 25 or so of our institutions, maybe 30 of our institutions, had their articulation agreements uploaded into the assist.org platform. So I will also put that in the chat, and hopefully if you're working with transfer students, that's something you're familiar with. But again, that can help you search and find articulation agreements between community colleges in the state and our institutions. So with that, I will put that in the chat, and I open that question up to you all. And maybe I'll start, Belinda, with you this time.
Great. We actually do work very closely with Assist, or the platform Transferology as well. And the nice thing is, every time that our registrar does some kind of course articulation or course transfer, it goes right into Assist and therefore Transferology later. So we are up to date as completely as possible with those course equivalencies and transfer of courses. We don't specifically do articulation agreements with the universities. We have some, but the priority over the last few years has really been to just update Assist as often as we can, and that's really been our focus. So I think you'll find that if you go and you use that tool, or your students may be using Transferology, that articulation is going to be pretty accurate.
Yeah, I'm gonna go next. I assume that Sarah doesn't have a whole lot to say on this topic, given her last response. We have some published articulation agreements on our website with, a variety of community colleges up and down the state. They are not exhaustive by any means. They're meant to be kind of like a guideline. These are the most popular classes we see. We're not on Assist just yet, but we're actually fleshing out our platform with DegreeSite, which is another avenue for transfer students to explore transfer credit and how things will articulate. And we expect that to be up before the end of this semester. So that's coming. I will say, just from experience, 95, 98% of academic coursework. So what I mean by that is things that aren't, like technical training, EMT classes, or, like Photoshop classes, things that are super technical, which are good to have, but don't really translate to what happens here on this campus. Everything else, anything that's genuinely, what I would call academic in nature, will transfer for credit. Then it's just a question of how it's going to get mapped to general education or lower division major requirements, those sorts of things. But so we work with students individually, but yeah, we're working on building out some of those platforms so that students can see in advance, what's going to transfer. But, generally we've seen like 95, 98% of the coursework is accepted. It's just a question of how it's going to map over.
Great.
Yeah, and Mike's right. We, given what I shared before, we don't have any specific articulation agreements.
Okay. We have a few minutes left, and so I want to pivot to a question that I think speaks both to first-time freshman applicants as well as transfer students, and that's just, I guess, kind of this question about like what makes a strong candidate, right? Do you have a minimum GPA requirement for admissions, or kind of how are applicants evaluated, and kind of what makes a strong candidate? And I think we can use the remaining time we have to talk about that, both again for first-time freshmen and transfer students if applicable.
Yeah, I'm happy to go first on this one. We at Harvey Mudd, we do not have a minimum GPA. I will say most of our students tend to be extremely strong students. We don't have any, obviously, minimum test scores or anything like that either, but we do require that all students before they get to us have already taken a year of calculus, a year of chemistry, and a year of physics, but we don't dictate at what level that is. And we have a method of evaluation called CBE, or committee-based evaluation. And essentially what that means is 2 admission readers will read every file together. One person reads one half, the other person reads the other half, and we're talking the entire time. If I'm reading a transcript and I see an odd year or an odd grade, I can say to my partner who's reading the common application, I wonder what happened in 10th grade. And they can say, oh, well, I can tell you their father passed away, or there was a divorce or an illness or something like that. And our entire job as a pair is to determine whether or not that student has a chance of being offered admission and therefore should move on to our admission committee. And what we are really looking at is, as I shared at the start, students who love STEM but don't want to do that in isolation. They want to sort of study broadly. And we're looking for students who are excited about collaboration, group work, and understanding the impact of their work on society. So very holistic review, which I'm guessing you're going to hear from all of us, but it's a very holistic process. We read everything students send us, 2 teacher recommendations, a counselor recommendation if one is available, and focus on the fit with the college.
I'll just share, since Tara talked about holistic review, I think that's a great place to maybe start. We definitely agree and with Tara and prescribe to this concept of holistic admission. And the idea is that we're really looking at everything from grades, so that academic record, and then of course everything else, right? The writing samples, which are their essays, the letters of recommendation, and if they provide test scores, we'll look at that too. I think what's important for as you're thinking about the University of Redlands and or perhaps other institutions, is knowing that we are not necessarily on what I call a scavenger hunt for a GPA. When we look at the transcript, it really is this holistic review, even just on that transcript, to understand academic patterns, decisions a student made when they selected a track or a pathway through high school. We don't look at 9th grade, we look at 10th grade through end of senior year. And of course, it's all about timing, right? So 9th through end of junior year, or 9th through first semester senior year, depending on when a student applies. For transfer students, it's very similar. We're looking at, those grades and that pattern, right? If there is a story behind what has happened, we want to know about it. So my best advice for you all to maybe share with your students is, don't let us make a story right up about what might have happened. Don't have us assume about what happened. It is really in that holistic review that we learn about the student story, their life experiences, what has gone on, that will help us to, connect the dots about the entire applicant and their story. So yes, it's looking at specific things that are part of our requirements, but we are doing a holistic review. We want to see and really learn about the student. And at the end of the day, our jobs are to shape a class, right? Who are those students that are going to come and be a part of our community? And we do look at making sure that they're transitioning well academically, but also that socially they're going to give back to our community in some way and contribute that way.
Great. Mike, final word?
Yeah, I mean, maybe add something that would be unique to us. I mean, the holistic review is certainly true here. A transcript doesn't tell the whole story in the same way that a test score doesn't tell the whole story. They're just different lenses on who that student is. So maybe the one thing that's unique here, we're a faith-based institution. And so students don't have to they don't have to claim the Christian faith to attend here. But they have to know that that's what they're walking into. That's who we are as a community. And so I've got essentially two questions when I have our staff reviewing applications. I mean, the one is this student going to be able to succeed when they arrive here? It's not easy once they get here. And if they're not prepared, we're not doing a favor to that student by admitting them. It's not good for them. It's not good for the institution. And so is the student going to be able, have they shown that they're prepared academically? And my other question is this the kind of environment that they want? Is this the kind of cultural environment where they're going to thrive? And however they can share that helps us see that this specific culture is what they've kind of been preparing for. Which is also a question I would turn around to a lot of students and say, when you're looking at schools, essentially what you're looking for is a broad culture that you're going to insert yourself into. And that includes the academic rigor and the expectations that are going to be laid on you. It includes what the community enjoys and celebrates and what the community perhaps dissuades or discourages. Those unique mixes on every campus is going to be unique from campus to campus. And so you want to, as a student, find those places that as a community, as a culture, are already heading the direction that you essentially want to go. And once you find that, you're finding then a community, a culture, a campus that you're just going to be thrilled with and really, really, really kind of thrive and take off in. Mm-hmm. So that's kind of what we're looking for. How is this student going to succeed? And then have they kind of prepared or shown the inclination toward the other things that are of value to us? And that's essentially what we're looking for.
Great. Thank you. Thank you all for joining the discussion. Really appreciate it. I did see we had a raised hand from Cindy. I think in the interest of keeping us on time, Cindy, I would encourage you to put, if you have a question or comment, to put it in the chat or Q&A feature, and maybe one of our panelists can answer it in the chat, or we can connect with you offline. Thanks. Okay. With that, then I want to transition us to our next panel, which is going to be on financial aid. And so I think Amber should be pulling in our panelists for that. Just bear with us for a second here. And I'm sure we will have a lot to discuss in this space. Perfect. So if I could have Caitlin and Jillian come onto camera here as we make this transition. Perfect. Good morning. Okay. Similar to our last panel, what I'd like to do to kick us off for this discussion is invite each of you to briefly introduce yourself and do kind of a brief 30-second or so summary of kind of the institution that you are part of. And I'll start with Caitlin.
Thanks, Alex. Good to have everyone here this morning. My name is Caitlin Goslinga. I am the Senior Assistant Director of Financial Aid at University of the Pacific. We are actually a 3-campus university with our primary campus in Stockton, California, which is where all of our undergraduate students are located. We also do have a campus in San Francisco, which is our Dugoni School of Dentistry, and in Sacramento, our McGeorge School of Law, and our growing School of Health Sciences. A little bit about what makes Pacific special is we are a small institution, but we offer big college choices. We have over 100 different majors for our students to choose from. We have a very East Coast vibe. I don't know if you can kind of tell from the background here, but once you get into the heart of campus, it feels like you are on the West Coast despite being in California in California's first university. We hit record enrollment goals this year, which is super exciting. We have about 6,900 students across all 3 of our campuses.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Hi, everyone. Good morning. My name is Jillian Doyle. I am the Director of Student Financial Services at Pepperdine University's Graziosi Business School. This fall at the business school, we have around 1,100 students attending our various programs. The business school is one of Pepperdine's 5 schools. Our primary campus is in Malibu, California, and we have various satellite campuses throughout Southern California.
Great. Thank you both for being here. This will probably not surprise you, but I've had a question from the last panel I was sitting on for you all about FAFSA. So we're just going to dive right in. In your roles, how are you dealing with financial aid in light of the FAFSA issues that we experienced this last year and are probably still sorting out the full impacts of that?
That's a great question. There were a number of significant challenges that we all faced this last year. I'm sure you all are no strangers to all of the technical concerns that your students went through, but also on the administrator side, right? Like new challenges every single day in getting access to the data and the information we needed to help students and their families make good, educated choices about where to go to college. I would say one of the main ways that Pacific fought some of those challenges, we had the kind of the mindset I think we predicted that it was going to be a bigger issue than we thought, which of course ended up happening. So we launched kind of our own in-house financial aid calculator, probably winter or so of last year. Families could fill that out, and despite our team not having access to their FAFSA yet, because that was a date that was just further delayed, we were able to get out estimated financial aid offers to those families, and in return, we promised that we would meet those figures, right? Even in spite of delays, we still have a number of students who are waiting on paper FAFSAs to be processed, right? So we've been able to partner with those students and families to make things work, in spite of all of the uncertainty with the form. We've got a goal to launch that calculator again this fall, especially with the FAFSA being delayed for the large population until December 1st. So we're hopeful to utilize that tool again this year.
Thank you. Jillian?
At my school, in addition to having an online estimated calculator, we also made sure to stay in good communication with students, both via email as well as in our newsletters. Also keeping key stakeholders updated on when the FAFSA information would likely be received, when our system would be updated, and when students would be able to see their financial aid award letter. One important note at our school is that most of our students are graduate students and our undergraduate students are transfers. So many of them have already gone through the financial aid process and knew what to expect, what type of aid would be available. So that was one benefit on our end.
Great. I think Caitlin, you touched on this a little, but given the experience this last year with FAFSA, and the fact that we're probably looking at a December 1 rollout this year. I'm curious if you could both speak a little bit to kind of based on what you learned, kind of what strategies you've put in place to address those challenges or overcome those challenges as we look to this next wave of kind of admissions and financial aid applications. And yeah.
Yeah, I'd be happy to speak to that a little bit. I don't know if I'm speaking for all financial aid administrators, but at least many of us felt last cycle that we had limited confidence in a lot of the information we were giving families, right? Things were changing every single day. And so one day the answer to a question would be this, and the next day it would be that, as we are working with families in getting their FAFSAs filed or dealing with technical issues. We kept constant eyes on the kind of, I don't know the right word for it, but federal student aid had just a running list of known technical concerns. So we were very watchful there in looking at all of the issues, trying to find workarounds to those solutions. And I would say a lot of the concerns that we saw amongst families, especially were access with their federal student aid ID and password, right? This is known as the FSA ID. So knowing that we've got a December 1st launch date, what we are telling all of our families and kind of working with them on is getting that FSA ID created, right? They can do that now. And so that means if they've got some verification issues with the ID, they've got time to get that access and that login set up and ready to go prior to filing the FAFSA in December. Kind of on that note, with a lot of the confidence that we have of kind of knowing what the FAFSA is going to look like, and with federal student aid also stating that they're not going to be making really significant new changes in this cycle. They're going to be working on fixing and repairing a lot of the issues from this last cycle, which is encouraging. We are kind of planning on, launching a fall webinar series, doing walkthroughs and demos of the FAFSA. That was something that was a little bit hard to do last year with all of the changes. So we are going to do our best to help give families the confidence they need to understand the financial aid process, the information they need to have on hand as they're getting ready to file the FAFSA, what they can do to prepare. So that way, come December, they're launched and they are ready to go to file the form.
On our end internally, we're working with our IT department to prevent some of the bottlenecks that we had during the last cycle. Once the FAFSA was open and accessible to students, our internal financial aid processing system required additional updates in order for us to retrieve the FAFSA and be able to process and send out award letters and notifications. So one of the things we're doing this year is working on ensuring updates are timely so that as soon as the FAFSA is open, we can go back to processing aid and award letters as quickly as possible. So we're hopeful that this year the issues will start to reduce and hopefully be eliminated as much as possible.
Great. Thank you both. I know earlier we were talking a bit about sticker price and sticker shock. And I think there'd been a question about kind of basically the value proposition, right, of a student advising a student to look at a CSU versus, a private institution where the listed tuition can be much higher. So I wanted to provide an opportunity, a little bit of time to talk about institutional aid and financial aid. And I'm just curious if you could speak to a little bit to the types of institutional aid you have available to students, and kind of, how you talk when you meet with students and families about cost. And maybe Jillian, I'll start with you this time.
Sure. So we offer merit aid through our application. All students are evaluated for a standard merit award based on their typically undergraduate performance, or if they are applying to our undergraduate program, they are evaluated based on their units completed in their first 2 years of their undergraduate degree, as well as work experience. For the merit a portion. In addition to that, we have designated scholarships that are typically endowed that students are able to apply for outside of the standard merit process. And those applications are based on a set of criteria typically established by the donors. So those are not as awarded as frequently, but students do qualify for those. Additionally, students are able to use corporate partnerships where their employer may pay for a portion of their schooling. So that's another avenue that we offer and help students through.
I would say at Pacific, we have probably 3 kind of sources of institutional aid. Similar to what Jillian had mentioned, we also offer merit scholarships. All of our students that apply are automatically considered for those. So the nice thing is for them, that's one less thing they have to do in a very busy fall term. As they're applying to schools, they don't need to do a separate application. And on the higher range of some of those scholarships, that can come close to covering half of our tuition, right? And that's just with a merit scholarship. From there, of course, we also have institutional need-based financial aid. So that's our Pacific tuition and housing grant that we offer to students who do demonstrate financial need. And part of our awarding policy, we take a look at what the other resources are that a student has, right? Do they have federal aid? Do they have a Pell Grant? Do they have state aid, the Cal Grant, for example? And let's say in scenarios where there's some sort of snafu in the Cal Grant process, that happens, right? Maybe a FAFSA was filed late, or a GPA was not submitted, or maybe a family is just slightly above the income ceiling, but maybe still solidly middle class, right? In those scenarios, we do offer additional institutional need-based aid to help kind of offset maybe the fact that a student does not have the Cal Grant. So that's kind of a pretty significant part of our students' financial aid offers. We do also have endowed or donor-funded scholarships, but at Pacific, the way those are set up is they're not available right away for brand new first-year students. However, once students get to campus, they settle in, they're able to apply for those in the fall, and we use kind of their established academic record at Pacific once they've started taking classes. And then any funds awarded as part of that process are applied toward their next year at Pacific. So we have over 100 different donor scholarship opportunities, and so questions students and families always have is there more, right? Is there more scholarship money that I can have? Which is always a good question to ask, and every school may have a bit of a different process there. So definitely worthwhile checking in with schools to ask about those additional donor scholarships, how schools set those up, what the application process looks like as well. Alex, you're muted.
Darn. Made it a whole hour and change. Thank you. One or two just quick kind of short follow-ups on that regarding institutional aid. One, and I know this question came up a lot last year with the FAFSA issues. Are there firm deadlines for institutional grant aid at your institutions?
Not with us, right? If you are applying to Pacific, maybe we were on your radar a little bit later, or you've had a change in circumstances and maybe you want to stay closer to home or go further away, right? Depending on what's going on in your life. We don't have strict deadlines for those funds. So if we've, got room in the class, student wants to join us, and of course they meet the admission eligibility criteria, or there's room in the major, we definitely don't restrict those institutional funds. We do our best to get those out in a similar capacity.
Similarly, on our end, if a student is admitted and meets the application deadline, we do process their financial aid application, namely the merit awards. We do have deadlines for the endowed applications, so students may not always be eligible for those. Otherwise, Cal Grant, of course, that's also based on the March 2nd FAFSA deadline. So depending on the timing of their application, they may not be eligible for the Cal Grant, but otherwise, And if their application is accepted, we do process their financial aid based on whatever they're eligible for.
Great, thank you. And then my second follow-up, actually, I saw someone put in a similar question in the Q&A, and that's just regarding undocumented or students who have undocumented parents or who may be from mixed status families. Are they eligible for your institutional grant aid, and kind of how have you how have your institutions worked with those students and families given last year's issues with processing FAFSAs?
So in that scenario, if the student is a US citizen or a permanent resident, of course, they're eligible to file the FAFSA and need that parent involvement as they're going through. And that was definitely the crux of many of the issues that we had last year. As you know, being in the area that we are at, we do have quite a few students and families whose parents do not have social security numbers. And they had a new option this year to like make their FSA ID online, which was a fantastic move forward. However, the execution of that process was another story. And so families first had to go through an identity verification process with getting those accounts set up. There were challenges there. Eventually, federal student aid said, oh, you don't need to do that anymore. Y'all can just get your accounts ready to go. And so there was a turning point to where it was easier for parents to get those IDs set up. And you know, we had some, of course, that opted to do paper FAFSAs just due to those challenges. So I would say my advice there and kind of working with those families, we're still seeing issues with processing of paper FAFSAs. And so we want to encourage them, of course, to kind of go through the online process if at all possible. And of course, there's also some of the concern and the hesitancy that a lot of those families have in filing a federal government form, right? And that's kind of another challenge or a hurdle with those families to kind of get over in those scenarios. And I know that can be a difficult conversation, but ultimately, a lot of the aid that we have at our institution is very dependent on information from the FAFSA. So if we don't have that, if we never get it, that might not be something we're able to move forward with in the aid process. And so might be a family that might have to look at other options, but that's definitely a tricky scenario sometimes with families that have some concerns regarding filling that form out.
Not much to add on my end. That was a great point, Caitlin. For our students, we do have some students who are international, and those students, if they choose not to complete the FAFSA, we still award them based on their application, and they're typically eligible for the merit award and have the option to either look at other funding, including a private loan or paying out of pocket.
Great, thank you both. I see there's a question as well about if the CSS profile is something that either of your institutions use or utilize.
We do not require the CSS profile. For those of you that may not quite know what that form is, that's an additional financial aid form that over 250 schools and colleges across the country utilize to assess institutional financial aid, need-based aid in that case. So at Pacific, we are a FAFSA-only school, so a student only needs to complete the FAFSA. They do not need to do the profile in addition.
Mm-hmm.
We also do not utilize the CSS profile. We use the AICCU.
Okay. And then that was answered. And then I also saw, I think on that last thread about kind of FAFSA and hesitancy to fill out, there was some question about the CADA, California Dream Act application. Do your institutions utilize that for aid purposes?
So we do. The California Dream Act, or the CADA, would be for students who are not US citizens or permanent residents. There's actually kind of a number of different eligibility statuses. So typically a student does one or the other. Either they're eligible to file the FAFSA or they would complete the CADA. So at Pacific, we utilize the CADA, of course, in awarding state aid. That would be the Cal Grant. We also do offer our institutional merit scholarships for that student population as well who do file the CADA.
Mhm.
That's the exact same here at Pepperdine. We would award the student Cal Grant if they're eligible based on the CADA, but otherwise they would be eligible for their merit scholarship based on their application.
Perfect. And then I lied. I had one more question about institutional aid before we move on, because I don't want to say it. Are transfer students considered for institutional grant aid, or are there any specific pots of institutional grant aid specifically available for transfer students? And Jillian, I'll start with you.
Yes, the students applying to our undergraduate program are all transfer students. They're coming in to complete the final 2 years of their undergraduate degree, and they are eligible for the merit aid based on their application.
We do also offer specific merit scholarships just for our transfers as well as institutional need-based aid. So they go through the same exact consideration process that our undergraduate students do. First year students, I should say.
Great, thank you. Shifting gears a little bit here, how can high school staff or community college staff or other kind of college access professionals best help their students when it comes to financial aid applications?
That's a great question. And I think there's a number of different avenues one can take in kind of helping students and families. I always say first thing, I encourage everyone, file your own FAFSA. Even if you're not going to school right now, it's all right. And send it to us if you want to, right? Just to kind of get a sense of what the form is and what the process is for the students and families that you are assisting. I know it's going to look a little bit different if you're over the age of 24. It's a bit of a different process because you're considered independent, but I encourage all college access professionals to do their own FAFSA, right? Beyond that, just kind of looking at all of the different resources that are there to help walk maybe you through the process or to kind of talk through the process before you are working with parents. Federal Student Aid has a lot of webinars. I know they have an FSA outreach YouTube channel. That'd be great to subscribe to. Also, individual colleges, right, may have their own demos that you can kind of tune into to kind of get a sense of what the process is. And I encourage families to do the same thing, right? Look through slides, look through demos before they actually file the FAFSA. It can really kind of help get them more comfortable with the process before they actually dive right in and complete it, just to try to avoid any really common mistakes as they are completing the form, answering specific questions. We want to make sure that they are doing all of those things correctly. So schools in your area may have resources you can kind of tap into or join. I would also encourage you, if you don't have any kind of financial aid night in the fall, reach out to the maybe AICCU that is near you, or CSU, UC Community College. Part of some of the requirements, right, to administer financial aid is financial aid administrators have to do local outreach, right? That's kind of the ethos of our profession. And so there may be schools near you that are willing to host some high school nights. So if any of y'all are near the Stockton area, don't hesitate to reach out if that is a partnership that you are looking to have, or if you want to do some sort of financial aid completion workshop. It really helps us too, right? Because we see some of the issues and the questions that families are having. It helps us help our own students as well. So that's kind of my advice there.
On my end, I would suggest that high school staff or other college access professionals consider advising students to prepare as early as possible. maybe having students and parents, as Caitlin mentioned earlier, create their FSA ID, start to familiarize themselves with the studentaid.gov website. Also giving themselves as much time to complete the application as possible. So I suggest starting it as soon as it opens. That way, if you need to save the application, gather additional information, come back at a later time, it's not forced or rushed, and giving yourself more time is always, I think, beneficial when going through the financial aid process. Also, as Caitlin mentioned as well, familiarizing yourself with the resources that are available. I also suggest looking at the financial perspective more broadly, encouraging students to look at resources on budgeting, borrowing wisely, things of that sort as they're going through the financial aid process. Of course, taking it one step at a time, but also looking at it from more of a global perspective about affordability and things of that sort.
Great. And as we were sitting here a moment ago, there was also a question in the chat from another Alex, not myself, but asking if you could both speak a little bit more about kind of scholarships and institutional scholarships, either like kind of like an average amount or give like a sense of range of what those types of scholarships look like for students. And I'll start, well, you're already unmuted, go ahead.
Yeah, quick answer there. I would say our range is about 15 to 30,000, right? So large range there when it comes to looking at just the merit scholarship portion.
Okay. And Jillian?
The amount ranges based on the program that the student is applying for. I would say it goes from $2,000 per term up to $7,000 per term, so per trimester.
Mm-hmm. I think that was for merit aid, right? And for institutional grant aid, I assume it's that, I mean, that's going to be determined based on financial aid forms and what the cost of attendance is, what they're expected to contribute, and what that delta is, or
That's going to be an individual review for each and every student. So a lot of times we have families ask that question, hey, what are averages for your institution? And it's a great question, but it's not necessarily going to help that individual family, right? Because an average is just that. It's an average. There's going to be families that are above it, families that are below it, and everywhere in between. And so that's why we encourage families to apply, right? Because an average, I would hate for an average to dissuade or discourage a family from even considering our institutions, despite that sticker price, because they may end up in a place that makes sense for them.
Mm-hmm. Thanks. The last kind of question I had on my list here, and then we can see if there are other questions in the chat or continue the conversation for the time we have remaining. What piece of advice would you give to students and their families pertaining to financial aid and kind of the affordability question proposition as it relates to independent nonprofit colleges in the state? And Jillian, do you want to start there? Or?
Sure. As far as affordability, again, I advise students to look into financial literacy resources as they are beginning their adult financial journeys. I suggest looking into just budgeting, loan simulators, and money management checklists that they can review to determine what their ultimate goals are career-wise, as far as how much they might be borrowing, if the school is affordable for them, as well as their ultimate objectives.
I would say some of the advice that I would add on to this question when we're talking about affordability and families trying to navigate perhaps many different financial aid offers if they're applying to multiple schools. And I want to preface this by saying I know that talking about money is hard, right? These are hard conversations for everyone to have in life, even outside of going to college, right? Like talking about money is never easy. And my encouragement to families is to have that conversation with their student, right? They may be faced with financial aid offers and scenarios where all of this scholarship and grant money may come really close to covering a lot of costs, right? Maybe cover all of tuition, but not housing or a portion of each. But to be open and honest with their students about what they are willing to pay for, what they're able to afford. Talking about the L word, right? Talking about loans. I know that that's a no one's raising their hand saying like, I would like that loan, please, is my first choice. But students are going to see loans on their financial aid offer. And sometimes borrowing a reasonable or a responsible amount is what might make a private nonprofit in California accessible to that student. So really kind of giving them the tools and the resources they need to understand all of those different aid options and helping that family craft a plan, right? Maybe a 4-year plan or a 2-year plan as to what those options are if financial aid doesn't cover completely every cost, which likely may be the case at some institutions.
Great, thank you both. And then let's see here. I saw there was a question about it. Do transfer students receive scholarships and there are other types of institutional aid? Are those only available for first year at the institution? So I think we've discussed that previously. I think that transfer students are considered for institutional aid at both your institutions. I think most of our institutions that accept transfer students in undergraduate programs. And I think the second part of that question maybe we didn't directly talk about is basically, is that aid only for their kind of first year? Is it kind of an ongoing commitment to the student? I would, assuming they make probably satisfactory academic progress, probably is the key, right? But
Yep, that's exactly the case, Alex. As long as things look similar in that family income from year to year, if they've got need-based aid or if they're meeting just general satisfactory academic progress, GPA and PACE criteria, we're able to renew those merit scholarships from one year to the next and need-based aid on a review of a new FAFSA.
okay.
That's the same on my end. We do have one caveat that in addition to meeting SAP, students do have to complete their program within a certain amount of time in order to ensure they're receiving their scholarship each term. So in the case that they are doing a 2-year program and take 3 years to complete the program, the 3rd year, they would need to find additional aid because they will no longer be eligible for the scholarship.
Okay. And then I think I saw one more question comment in the webinar chat here. Just basically, the general advice has been to apply first, get the financial aid package, and then compare aid and decide. And the question was if are there any kind of more concrete resources to share with transfer students? So another kind of follow-up question related to transfer students.
I would say that one, it can be difficult sometimes to give some more concrete, accurate information as students progress year to year, because every year, sometimes those aid resources on an individual college campus can change. Of course, there's net price calculators on colleges' websites, but oftentimes that data is looking backwards, right? And maybe we're in a scenario where looking forwards, we're able to offer more institutional aid to our transfer population. So I know that that's not the answer, of course, that anyone wants to hear, but I would encourage transfer students, if they've maybe got a sense of what their current financial aid information is, maybe what their student aid index is, that number the FAFSA kind of spits out, to get on the phone and have a conversation with the financial aid team at those prospective schools that they're looking at transferring to see if they can kind of get a sense of what up-to-date information might be at that college, because that really can change year to year as far as resources, at least at my institution.
Great.
At my institution, again, all of our students would be considered transfer students who are applying to the undergraduate program. So they are new to our school and applying and considered for merit aid as the same as all other students. So they are not considered in any type of different pool or category.
Great. Thank you both. I think we are right at the bottom of the hour here, so appreciate how much we've covered in the time we have. And again, I know the FAFSA issues are, I keep saying I think all people working financial aid should be given medals for their work the last year. So thank you both for your work with students and for joining us today and sharing your insights for this discussion. So thank you both.
Thanks, Alex, for having us.
Perfect. Okay. And then with that, we will turn to our last panel, which is going to be to talk a bit about student services and what that looks like for students at our institutions. And so we have all three of our panelists here. And similar to the prior two, I would invite each of you to introduce yourself briefly and share a little bit more about the institution that you are part of. So I will leave that to whoever wants to unmute themselves first.
I'll hop. I'm an early unmuter. Hi, I'm Erica Wilson. I'm the Associate Dean at Otis College of Art and Design. We are about 1,300 students located in Westchester, so right near Venice, Santa Monica, right next door to LAX. We offer 8 different art and design specialized programs from toy design, fashion design, graphic design, illustration, fine arts, animation, game design. We also offer quite a few different minors for our students, including entrepreneurship and sustainability. We find our students are looking for that business mind of art making. Yeah, and that's me in a nutshell.
Thank you. Who wants to go next?
Gabriela, you don't want to go?
Yeah, I can definitely go. I was trying to find my unmute button. My name is Gabby Hughes. I'm at Santa Clara University. We're located in Santa Clara, California, right really just a street away from San Jose. So we're in a pretty good location for students to really get the access to the different areas they want to check out for internships and immersion programs, but also to kind of unwind. So they get the quiet of a residential campus, but also have a lot of access to having a lot of fun. And I always say that our Broncos, our students they work hard and play hard. So they are definitely hitting the books, a very I would say energetic and supportive group we have here on campus, but they also love to have fun and take advantage of the area. We have 3 colleges, the College of Arts and Sciences, Levy School of Business, and the College of Engineering. All 3 are very, very popular right now. And we just definitely have that interdisciplinary aspect to our school where our students are doing double minors sometimes across schools and minors, of course, as well. But definitely a group of students that is very diverse in that sense. They love to try new things and kind of combine different majors that make them really, really interesting.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you. Good morning, counselors. And first of all, thank you, Alex, and the team of AICCU for organizing such a wonderful event. I think as a two-way, this is a kind of engagement that we would love to have with our counselors, correct? Give them the information that they can guide their student in the right direction and transfer to university that they desire. My name is Munir Masood, and I'm the Director of Community College Pathways. As my title says, I'm working with community colleges. I'm meeting with transfer students. I'm a kind of one-stop shop person at Nash University. The one thing that I really love about my job is the meeting with students, talking about their program pathways. So Nash University is a nonprofit veteran founded since 1971 from San Diego, California. We are known for our class modality, which is 4-week classes. You take one subject at a time, one class per month. you move on to the next class next month. So students are taking one class at a time. Part of that is because we are veteran-founded university, we are very military friendly, of course. And currently we have about 130,000 students, which 50,000 actively taking classes toward a degree, bachelor's, master's, and doctoral program. And 80,000 of them working towards certain short-term credentials, the certification and those kind of things. So, and we have students from all United States, basically, because it's 100% online. So that's about Nash University. Just to give you a little bit highlight, but I'm looking forward to answering any question. And so thank you again for having us.
Great. Thank you all for being here. Let's start by just kind of talking generally about the types of services that are available at your institutions to provide academic support for students. And if you want to, in that, if you haven't already, you could speak a little bit, if possible, to just what is kind of the profile of the student body that your institution serves. And maybe Gabrielle, I'll start with you this time, if that's okay.
Yeah, perfect. Profile as in the demographics that we're looking at. Okay. Yeah. So just geographically, we have a lot of students from California. We are definitely we're working towards being an HSI, excuse me. So we definitely have programs that support our students. So that's definitely one of the focuses that we have. We had been a very different profile before. We're a private Jesuit university, so that is definitely changing. I would say it starts always with supporting our students who are here, and we have a very diverse team of counselors as well. So that's definitely changing our demographics here on campus. We have services for students, not just necessarily because they might be struggling, which it does happen, but we do have advising and tutoring. It's free tutoring for everyone. We have also peer advising and peer tutoring for our students. We understand that even though they're high achieving, it's hard to ask for help. So we have those very much promoted and talked about often on campus. It's definitely tied to their mental health. So we do make sure that that's a message that we always have for students, that they have advising services, that they have mentors available, and that they have also a peer advising as well, because that's sometimes it's easier to approach than, having to ask our Drawman Center of Advising. But we do have those services aside from our students. We have a pretty small population. I mean, we're mid-sized, but our faculty ratio is 11-1, our student to faculty. So that also allows a lot of one-on-one opportunities for students to get help.
Thank you. And Monir, I think I'll shift to you next since you're already unmuted.
Thank you. Thank you. Like Gabriela mentioned, our university is similar to many of our universities and particularly in state of California. And well, we see our partner universities in this case, not as a competitor, but more of as a partner, as I mentioned, is this. The reason is because we would like to be the alternative option for the students, not in a sense that they student fail a class and then transfer to somewhere else, but more of if traditional setting modality semester doesn't work, they can go to a university that really meet their lifestyle, correct? So our class are 4 weeks long. Again, class starts every single month. They take it one class at a time. The one thing that we are proud of course, we are a minority serving institution. We are HSI, a Hispanic serving institution as well. 35% of our student body is somehow related to military, either active duty member, reserve, veteran, and at the same time, either spouses or dependents, all those, correct? So, but our students, what we call them the enders, those are students and a mother, correct? A student and a father and going to and you know that we all in that situation in our lifetime right now. So so what we do have a services available for them that we tell them, when you come to class, we want you body, mind, and soul The rest we will provide to you. So like Gabriela mentioned about the mental support services that we have accessible for our students. Writing center, tutoring center, correct? We have a specific department actually, Alex, that it's really what we call the Academic Success Center. I'm currently doing my doctorate at National University. I'm alumni, I have 2 masters. So I use the Academic Student Services Center for my writing paper, my assignments. And the good news is I can go there on a Sunday. I can go there on a Monday. I don't have to schedule a meeting. And if I need extra support, they are available for me. The other thing that we do also proactively, Alex, these activities that really support students with how to manage not the time, but how to manage their tasks, right? Because that's what's important. Because time management is really tough in nowadays life situation. So what we have done it at National University, we come up with ideas, sessions, for example, such as the yoga sessions online, and these are all virtual, by the way. A student can join from, again, nationwide. We have students all over coming to National University to pursue a degree with us. So yoga session, mindful session, these sessions that really help the student to have a momentum of self-care momentum with themselves, correct? But also these are provided by those amazing faculties. Mainly our students are coming from California community colleges, transfer students. They transfer to National University for 2 reasons again. One is because of 1-month classes. Second, we have this amazing scholarship. We advise, recommend, encourage our students to finish their associate degree transfer at their local community college. When they transfer to National University, they do not only finish their degree in short period of time, but also receive that special design incentive that we created for them to finish their degree affordable and take the other financial aid barriers away from them.
Great. Thank you. Erica?
So we're, again, small, about 1,300 students total, specialized art and design, but 32% of our students are first gen, and then 30% of those are transfers. So we do have a lot of students that are looking for these additional resources and extra support. And again, being sort of a unique type of curriculum, we have several different ways of that. So we do have our Student Learning Center, the SLC, that offers both the peer and academic mentors to kind of get that conversation going, talking about career paths and sense of control of an understanding of what they're learning. But then we also have the services do things like online tutoring and success coaching. There's different labs and workshops. The programs shift to meet the students' needs. So we're working with that as well. And a lot of time management work that we do. Sometimes we have students that just come in and they're like, I can't do this. I have to go. I've got my laundry. I didn't get this in my classes, because the design courses are very long. They're a lot of time in class. So it's a different way of working than students are typically used to. So that's why we're always offering these different ways to connect both with different academics, with their peers, and doing things too, that it's not just the academic part. For example, we have Club Adobe, which is a time for students to come in and work on those technical skills with applying different software and creative ways of working, and different drawing workshops. So again, it has the professors in there, but the students as well, and they're bouncing off each other.
Mhm. Thank you all. Given your institute, I think this is a great panel, that your institutions are all unique in some way, kind of from one another. Could you talk a little bit about kind of how your institutions support and kind of nurture a population of students that may be very diverse in a number of ways, where they geographically, kind of life experience, and kind of how do you, again, kind of foster an environment of kind of inclusion and support for the students that you serve? And maybe Erica, since we ended with you on the last question, maybe I'll start with you on this one.
Sure. So there's a couple different ways that we do this with our students. The students looking for these more creative industries are not linear thinkers. And they usually are extremely brilliant, but they don't even realize that until they get there because they learn a little differently and their path is a little different. And they might have been marching to the beat of their own drum at their previous place, right? So we have different, clubs and organizations, but also leadership groups. We do provide a lot of mental health support for our students too, to allow them sort of navigate their different ways of learning and maybe how they got to the place where they are. We are predominantly California students, majority come to us, but we do have students coming from all over the globe. So we do have our team international student, the TISO, that works with them as well. And then there's things that we've done too we're very diverse. We're an art and design school. We're in that top 1% for diversity amongst colleges and universities. So we have some different specialized initiatives like the Black Creatives and our BIPOC Student Summit. So the Black Creatives, they come before orientation. Students that identify as Black, they will arrive early. It's no extra cost to them. They're going to do different workshops, network with each other, meet professionals in the industry. So the idea is sort of help with that engagement and create a sense of community. And then we also want to help with retention with this group, right? So we're doing career development with them, identity formation, trying to help them get that sense of community and belonging and see like, hey, as a Black creative, I have a place here. The BIPOC Summit works in a similar way. So it's sort of coming together to talk about bringing that community together to discuss different hurdles or resources, things that way. So again, we're working with students in all those different levels. Again, our LGBTQ plus community is very robust and that they're meeting together as well on different levels. And then you'll find within the different majors too. So there's all these different communities, and that's what Otis is it's very community forward. And we work to find ways to connect these students.
Great, thank you. And I'm going reverse order in this one, so I'm gonna come back to you, Munir.
Thank you. So our student population is so unique in a sense, again, and I can speak to all individuals that are here today in this room. We have counselors who taking classes with us from community colleges who has received their credential through National University because again, there's the modality 4-week. You can hear me repeating this more and more because that's something that student loves, and we have been doing this since 1971. The idea we came up, and again, National University was founded actually by Captain David Chicos, who was a Navy captain in San Diego, and who was also teaching at the time of Palomar College, one of the community colleges here in San Diego, northern part of San Diego. The idea was to help these military or students that transitioning to workforce. And this 4-week classes that has been breakdown and clear agenda. Week 1, you do this, week 2, week 3, week 4, then you move on to the next class, really fits this our working adults learner schedules. Again, as I mentioned, we call our students the Enders, who again, I'm one of them. I'm a dad, I'm a director of community college pathway, I'm a husband. I'm additional, I have to take care of the dropping off the kids to school, all these home, but at the same time I'm getting my degree. But this format modality really fits my schedule, that I really I can easy manage it. But at the same time, what I really love about National University, the classes that is designed, our faculties are aware of where our students coming from, correct? Again, we have students from all 50 states and 20 countries. So these students, we know where they're coming from. Because our class are compact, small classroom, is as Gabriela mentioned earlier, it's easy to interact, correct? The ratio of faculty and students. So that way, you know your student by the name, you know student where they're coming from, and at the same time, you know where they're going, correct? So that way, we have a really special service designed for them that, for example, give you an example. If a student's a struggle, we find out that, hey, there's life's happened, correct? In the middle of the class, and they finished 75% of the coursework. we have a process in place and support system that we can extend their 4-week classes to 5 or maybe even 6 weeks so they can finish it at a later time. These are the things that we don't students, oh my God, I have to finish or have to drop. No, you talk with your professor. Hey, this is what happened in my life, or suddenly I have extra project on my work from my work that I need to meet the deadline. So that's something that we really accommodated our students. The other thing is the clear pathway that we have designed for our transfer students, because we participate in ADT pathways and AICCU pattern process. Or so we learn from our community college. Two audience help us with creating these pathways. One, our transfer student, they say, you know what, tell me exactly how many months, how many classes I need to finish my degree at National University. Second, counselors came to us, says, for example, I had a conversation with counselors, say, Munir, tell me how I should present this to a transfer students, correct? So we put a template together in one page, tell them exactly what classes. We tell them, hey, when you finish your associate degree transfer, you get all the G's waived. And of course, it's case by case, because a couple programs that require certain prerequisites. But most of our degrees are really clear. If they come from psychology, bachelor, associate degree to psychology, bachelor, 17 courses for their bachelor, says these are the courses and these are the costs. This is how much you pay. Boom, they know exactly. And they determine their start date based on that. So that's something that we made sure to have a clear agenda for these students, that they don't have to struggle anymore to find out, oh my God, what is about? Because again, remember I said, we want them to bring their mind, body, and soul. That means take all the other boundaries away so they can focus on studying classes. And we make sure that they start strong, but also finish strong with good GPA so they can either maybe continue to their master's degree, eventually the terminal degree, which is doctorate.
Great, thank you. Gabriella.
Yeah, so for diversity and inclusion, I think, one of the things that as Santa Clara is trying to be better and better at providing these avenues, I think they're really focusing on really reflecting the area that we serve. So, we're in Bay Area, which is very rich in different cultural and diverse backgrounds, not just ethnicity, but really experience as well. Transfer students would be part of that diversity on campus. So aside from expanding our TAAs for them to join us and to be looking for more scholarship opportunities and funding opportunities to, manage their education. That has been one of the things that we've definitely expanded. I would say, striving for to be an HSA is another one. We have a great first gen organization here on campus that is recently been expanded because we want to put our money where our mouth is. And I think when it comes to really critical mass in education is the best goal that any university could have, because that's the best education you can provide if you have all these different viewpoints. But in terms of tangible things that are happening here on campus, we really do have a strong diversity and inclusion program that, really houses a lot of different programs that are tangible to students. So aside from being aware with equity, we're providing space for them to meet. We're providing townhome meetings where we talk about very difficult subjects that are coming on campus. We have those quarterly. We definitely try to have them more. So if there's, definitely the discussions about Gaza and, religion and expression, we have those conversations regularly. And I think that's also part of that expression to support a diverse group of students. And we definitely also have a multicultural group that is funding and making available spaces and places for our students to meet. So there's a lot of interest in affinity groups, not just affinity on their own, but within the professional spectrum as well. So we definitely do support that as well.
Great, thank you. I'm going to pose one more question, then go to a question in the chat, and then I'll see where we are on time. I'm curious if you could speak a little more to some of the examples maybe for specific types of activities or programs or student organizations that are available on campus. If you want to share some kind of examples and or maybe highlight like your favorite or kind of like quirkiest, club or organization or activity that's available to students at your institution. And I'm gonna go reverse again. So Gabrielle, I'm just gonna kick it back to you.
Yeah, so we have a wide range. Our students love to be involved in everything. I think because of our campus size, they love to have different leadership opportunities and involvements. So I think one of the most popular on campus, being that we're in California and the area that we're in, is Into the Wild. A lot of students love this club because they kind of get together and do camping trips, kayaking, skiing. I mean, they really do love that. It's our number one most popular club because anyone can be a part of it, and that's how they bond. Another one that's kind of quirky is our bread loving club, which I think is hilarious. They get together and actually bake bread. I didn't know that was a thing, but they do it. It's really sweet. Another organization is we have our forage garden where they actually plant vegetables and food, and they get together and they make a meal for whoever wants to join, which I think is really really neat in that sense. But I mean, it ranges from organizations that are, again, affinity based or even within a certain professional background, like we have the Black Student Union, but we also have Black engineers, Black business students. And it's just really interesting to see that the range of things that they come up with, because a lot of them are already established. But then, with each coming cycle, a student can start a new one. There was one that was very centered on veterinarians that would get together and serve in different areas where, animals needed treatment, which was very popular for about 4 or 5 years. But once the students kind of like moved on, that one kind of went away. But, new ones come up, and I think that it's really neat to see how students really take on a lot of these different organizations. But yeah, there's different ways to participate on campus for sure.
Great. Thank you. And I'll go next to Monier. How do you all, what are some good examples for national, given students are spread out across the country and busy with just kind of their lives, as you noted earlier?
Yeah, that's something that we have been very mindful about, because student population again have so many things going on in life. We want to make sure that we don't bombard them with a lot of activities. We are mindful about that and making sure. So one of the things that comes up right away in my mind is the alumni team, that we have a alumni gathering a lot that we do by state. Sometimes we go different states depending on where they're so the alumni organization that we have is organized by our alumni team, who has been studied finished a degree at national, now part of this. So they go around and bring this alumni team together, but at the same time they invite the businesses, an institution, that networking kind of idea, correct? That's something that what we call creating a situation that they also, if they looking for new opportunities, so they have that. The other thing, because we are veteran founded university, we have a lot of veteran workshops going on online virtually at different times, that they can come together, talk about their challenges, especially in this time of era that we live right now, seeing things happening worldwide. Our veterans having a lot of things going on in their life, that they see that things are not happening in the way that they supported or anything. So they have a place that the camaraderie happening, share stories with each other. That way they get a full support, and making sure that their ideas is lessened. And especially as again, Gabriela mentioned about certain activities that happens. We all aware of that, but we also faculties. And this is something I want to share with you personal to this group. So in my dissertation is what I've done, and I'm actually on my chapter 4 and 5 right now, is cultural intelligence. So I surveyed the level of cultural intelligence of my faculty at National University. And this survey gave me a really beautiful data that's really indicated that our faculty are actively, mindfully engaging in conversation with students. Where are you coming from? How are you? What is, if student cannot attend the class on a Friday, what does that mean? If, for example, is it religious purposes, correct? If student cannot for example, raise his hand, waiting so long. Why is that? Is that being shy or something related to the culture, correct? These things are happening, of course, organically, at the same time, consciously with the faculties. But the other thing that I want to also share, we at National University, we have organized a session what we call the speaker series. So we bring different, this is specific to our industry students who again looking for a new opportunity we bring these alumni who now is becoming CEO or president or having a amazing career, that we invite them back to Cal University to talk about their experience and give some ideas. We also bring people to talk about topics such as, again, emotional intelligence, correct? AI, such an important topic right now that's happening at a community, high school level, community college, university level. So we bring experts to share this and making sure that not only faculty receives a good amount of information, but most importantly, our students, that to what level I can use my AI assistant, correct, what we call that nowadays, or to what level. So the speaker series, I think, is a great thing, and the VA department, and of course, our LGBT community is really actively involved, such as the month of July, we in San Diego, we have a parade. Has been organized by entire team. The students come together, they do the parade in San Diego. And as we all know, this month, for example, because we are a Hispanic serving institution, the Hispanic Heritage Month, we're actively involved in activities, bringing these amazing leaders together to share the experience with their students at National University.
Great, thank you. Erica?
So yeah, there's a large amount of clubs, and basically if there's something a student wants to start, they can do that. And they're going to go from ranges to the walking and tennis club to the LARPing, or some of my favorite are the women in animation. You don't have to be a woman to belong, but really popular one is our K-pop club. Very big amongst the students, and they always host the Ocella on campus. We're the Otis Owls, so we do an Ocella with food trucks and music and all of that. It's all through our student engagement and leadership department, SEAL for short. They also do the other leadership roles with these students too. So that's where the RAs and the student ambassadors and things like that. So those students are all crossing over. We're very career focused at Otis with the Art Design School. We have to start very early with those students, networking with professionals coming off for speaker series, different workshops and things. But one thing we want to remind these students is that your peers in your class, though, that's going to be your networking community as well. The creative industry is a lot of reference and referrals and very tight knit. So knowing each other and crossing over, and they have multiple interests as well. Nobody thinks, again, I'm just going to sit in a vacuum and do this one thing. So allowing these different types of clubs at different levels lets them network and get used to that idea of working collaboratively, but in a more fun way. Students are very career focused right now and very driven that way. And sometimes I like to remind them, it's okay to take a break and just enjoy your time in school and be a little selfish. And we do things too. We'll bring the puppies on campus or different activities, have some music and stuff to help them just relax and, again, learn to be together in an environment. But definitely we work hard and have our fun too, but our students are very focused. So a lot of the clubs do end up going back into possible career paths for them or a certain sense of personal wellness.
Sure. Great. I want to jump to, there was one question in the chat. If any of you want to speak to this, it's about neurodiverse students. So just how do your institutions support students who are neurodiverse or have an IEP or 504 at the high school level? And do you provide any testing for students if they don't have a doctor's diagnosis? I don't know if anyone wants to speak to that.
I can briefly on with Otis. A large, I would say almost majority of our students are coming and they are neurodivergent at a certain level. A lot are coming in with IEPs. And so we are connecting them with our disability services early on right through as soon as you're accepted. We also will connect some of those students with our mental health office and our counseling services as well, because sometimes they go hand in hand. Other different support groups so part of what we do with the students is they do provide the documentation. If they don't have it, we can work to outsource and make sure they get the right testing, and we connect them with those services before they start so that we can get that and begin to navigate that conversation with their professors, whether it's extended time, translators, note takers, ESL, different things like that. So we have a lot of different ways to work with our students. And again, it's this idea of once they realize, oh, there's others like me here, they begin to open up a little bit more about that. And some that may not have ever had a documented need for an IEP will come forward and work with us to make sure they get that so we can have that academic success.
Thank you.
Yeah, for Santa Clara, we have the Office of Accessible Education. Since we're a private university, we don't necessarily need any kind of plan that the student has had in high school. We're very much connecting them with the office, and their mission is to really adjust and work with the students individually to see what those needs are, because for their explanation to us was, yes, you could have an IEP, you can have a 504, but there are things that you can do better than what you were assessed with, and things that you might need more than others. So they sit down and customize things for the individual. So it's very much a self-advocating relationship for the student and the professional. So they don't have to get diagnosed. They just have to have a pretty good idea of how they learn best and work with the staff and faculty to support them.
Thank you.
In at Nash University, it's almost the same as all my colleagues on the panel mentioned, that Eric and Gabriela. Same thing. Again, one thing I think is important to know that what we do, we proactively coming with idea, hey, we have these services for you, correct? Making sure that students feel comfortable to say that, correct? Because it's certain things and certain culture is considered taboo to share, talk about that. And again, certain, for example, I needed extra time because I'm a slow reader, no matter what. I don't know if there's a test for that, but in my world was that I'm always taking my time to read. So I asked my accessibility department, hey, can I get extra time? And they saw my behavior that was constantly, correct? They noticed that. So we do definitely make sure if they have a document, absolutely. If they don't have it, we want them to talk with our accessible. These are counselors again, correct? Professionals who can have that comfortable conversation to open the door kind of for a student to share what they need, correct? The other example, what if a student's English is not first language, correct? Struggling. Again, I was one of them, and they need extra support. We accommodate that. But our mental health department, accessibility department in general, oversees that process and making sure that design this as individual counts. For example, in the cohort that I'm in right now, we had a student that need a translator in the sense that sign language, of course. He had it all the time with. So these are again designed like our community college partner, like our colleagues here in the room. We have those kind of services, but it's need-based, kind of individually designed for based on the need of that individual, of course.
Great. Perfect. Well, thank you all. I'm just double checking the Q&A. I don't see any other open questions there. I think the last thing I just want to touch on, I think several of you have noted this, but I just want to provide an avenue in case either you haven't or you want to add anything. And that's just another part of the student services is career services, obviously, and making sure students end up with strong networks and employment opportunities when they leave your institution. And so again, I know some of you have spoken to that a little bit, but as we close out here, I just want to provide an avenue if there's anything you'd like to share about the career services available for your students. And whoever wants to take that first, the floor is yours.
Since I'm unmuted, is that okay, ladies? Thank you. This is something that I think is very important to share. When we do that, in advance, we share this information with students. The moment that we have our first initial conversation, we talk about this. Again, the reason is for a couple of reasons. First of all, we have a lot of transfer students coming in because they're looking for the job. But our career center, we have a lot of, and again, the mixture event that we have with companies, because we, National University in general, we partner with a lot of nonprofit enterprises, and we invite them, part of the partnership is to invite them to our mixer events, what we call connect our available. And so you,
Monir, your audio is kind of cutting in and out. I'm going to come back to you in a second if that's okay.
can you guys hear me?
Oh,
Can you hear me now?
yes.
Oh, sorry about that. Technology, correct? Let's blame that. So we have Career Center that from day one, we shared that when we have a workshop for you is how to do interview nowadays. Remember, we had one way of doing interview back in days, either phone call or in person. But the COVID changed everything. Nowadays, we have a Zoom interview. So we have a workshop, Zoom interview workshop added to that, but we touch all different style of the interviews as well. Those are part of it. The other thing is we help our student with their establishing or developing, designing a professional LinkedIn profile. That way, it's part of that, because nowadays, if you apply for a job, the first thing you see, they go to check your LinkedIn account to learn more about you. So these are workshops that we have. And the other thing we want to do is building, but on the top of that, we also helping our students with posting their resume online to find a job. And again, we have those career events that we have on quarterly basis that we invite our, again, government, military, schools, districts, enterprises, nonprofit organization, in person and virtually to connect our student with those industry.
Perfect. Thank you. Erica or Gabriella, do you want to add anything?
I'll throw a little bit real quick and my little bragging numbers that I like to share about Otis. So we got our survey from 2023, our graduating class. We had 96 employed or in grad school within 1 year. 41% of them had offers before they even graduated. And I think a lot of that has to do with, yes, they could start from day one with our career office and it's a lifetime service, but we're doing a lot of work where we're bringing the companies onto campus. So we have our annual exhibition, internship fairs, Notice Otis, all these different programs. We're not necessarily putting it on the student to do the full outreach. We're bringing them in. And then also it's sort of a unique way of doing a resume or an artist statement, the bio for the different design fields and what they're looking for. So we help them work through that because there's tons of resources you can find on how to interview or do a resume, but are they going to be for that specific industry and how to navigate those conversations? And again, with our students that just are a little to their own way of working, we provide a lot of these mock interviews and we'll get other people on campus to go through it with them, doing that portfolio development, making a reel, doing their website and learning how to make it different ways for every kind of company. So that's one of the things is we'll start early with the students doing that and then try and connect them with internships early on. Not so much necessarily I'd always figure out what they want to do, but what don't they want to do. And I think that's a really important process for our students as well. But again, a lot of different resources that are offered to them throughout the whole time that they're there in different workshops.
That's great.
Yeah, for us, we do definitely have a very dynamic career center, which I think is doing a really good job at just stepping out of their building and really working with the 3 schools that we have on campus. The director is awesome. He brings in different employers for like coffee chats throughout the day. And he has a program where the students actually interview the employers, which I think is really cool. And he also has like a diversity and inclusion program as well for students who are first gen or who have had a hard time figuring that out because they don't have that at home or they never experience any of that kind of advice. So I think it's very open to understanding how students are learning how to network, and also our alumni network and our faculty are very well connected. So they definitely hook up our students with opportunities. So I would say it's kind of like a three-prong act for us to do that is faculty, alumni, and our career center, which is definitely has had us, I think, up to the 90% of students being employed full-time after they leave. Which, we're always looking, because it's not just about getting employed right away, but how long are they, and if they get, unemployed. So what they do is that they have a program where they check in on students who are graduated within 5 years after they've graduated. So they check that data as well. And then they do another program with the alumni. So I think having that longevity kind of focus as well to see how well we prepare our students, I think is also helpful.
Great. Well, thank you all. We are right at time. So I appreciate the three of you joining to share more about the work of your institutions in providing student services and supports to make sure that they are successful. I want to thank everyone who's joined today. I hope this has been helpful. Again, this is the culmination of or the end of our second year of fall counselor conferences. And we look forward to bringing another round of these back to you next fall, but certainly in the meantime, please do utilize the resources we've shared. Please reach out to AICCU or our institutions if you'd like to learn more. And we look forward to ongoing partnership with all of you in your roles throughout the state here. And yes, we will have a recording and the slides will be sent out, I believe, by the end of the week is the plan to all who are registered. So thank you all for joining. Appreciate it, and have a good rest of your week. Take care.
Thank you.